Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today we have the first of two looks at this week's press conferences ahead of Gameweek 12. The second part will be live same time tomorrow, so watch out for that. Also, like today's show, there will also be a podcast version. If you're listening to the podcast version, we've already made it into a podcast because you're listening to it. My name is Joe, and to sift through today's lineup and injury news with me today is Neil. Neil, welcome. How are you?
Very good, thanks, Joe. Yeah, how's things?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to an action-packed team news. Just looking at the array of managers that are giving their thoughts on lineup and injury news, etc. Let's be honest, tomorrow's the big one. But nevertheless, this is good. Then we've still got Leicester. We've got the likes of Leicester. We also have an update from Spurs as well, just to throw that one in. And the inevitable with Watford, I imagine. But let's just crack on. We'll crack on with it. Whoever started, really. And that was Chris Wilder earlier with Sheffield United. Yeah, what they take on Spurs. What news from Chris Wilder ahead of that?
He basically repeated the team news from last weekend where he said that they've got a couple of doubts, but he's not going to name names. So we don't know who they are. One of them could be John Egan, who's the regular starter in the middle of the three centre-halves. He came off last weekend with, I think, a knock. That's what he seemed to signal, although Wilder said after full time that he didn't feel well, so it could be injury or illness. But we're assuming that he may be one of the two. But regardless, he says he's hopeful that those injury doubts are going to train today and then hopefully travel down to the south tomorrow. So we're none the wiser really as to who they are, but providing everyone's fit and providing everyone's well, then Sheffield United are one of the most settled teams in the division this season, so should be few changes, especially given the fact that they beat Burnley 3-0 last weekend. So
few.
Yeah.
As a Henderson and Lundstrom owner, I'm very happy with that. So long may the lack of rotation continue there. Just before we move on to West Ham, there was a small update from Spurs, and obviously there's going to be much more news from Spurs tomorrow. There was a little bit of news. Yeah, what was coming out of the Spurs camp today?
Yeah, it hasn't really changed the return date. It's about Hugo Lloris, who's long-term absentee.
Yeah.
The Spurs said he's now undergone surgery on his elbow, but they still expect him to return to training in the early part of next year. So nothing's really changed much.
No, that's fine. I just thought I'd add that in because it's some people might think it'd be a bit earlier or later. It's all on course. Watch out tomorrow for more news from Spurs. Meanwhile, West Ham in dire form. Even Newcastle can beat them. That's how poor they are. What news from Pellegrini as his side prepare to take on Burnley this time around?
Yeah, we don't score 3 goals against many teams, so that was an indictment on West Ham, I think. Yeah, they're again pretty much as they were last week. So Fabianski's still going to be out for another month at least. Antonio is expected back after the international break, but that'll be game week 13. Winston Reid is still, as he has been for months now, building up his match fitness. So he's played a couple of times with the under-23s. I think Pellegrini was pointing us to the fact that he'll continue to do that until he's too ready for a first-team return. Jack Wilshere's the other one. He wasn't risked last weekend. He's going to get a further assessment before this weekend. He'll remain a 50-50 doubt, I think, in FPL. So apart from that, though, it sounds like a clean bill of health.
Okay, so they take on Burnley. Sean Dyche has been had his press conference as well today. Is there any chance that Chris Wood could be back to boost his side's attack, which dearly needs goals? So is Chris Wood likely to be back?
Every chance, according to Dyche. That's what he says. Yeah, so. You can often read a lot into Dyche's words because when he says touch and go, as he did last week with Wood, then invariably they don't make it. When he's saying every chance, that sounds a lot more positive. So I think they've definitely missed it past couple of games, as well as J-Rod has done, as Dyche likes to call him. I think that Wood-Barnes partnership certainly gives him a bit of potency in attack. So he has hopefully recovered from that hamstring problem. Danny Drinkwater is back in full training, but I think still a little way from a playing return. I think Dyche was on about getting a series of games organised for him before he can come into contention. And the other one's Goodmanson as well, who is absent still because of a hamstring injury, and that's going to be weeks away, I think. Apart from that, I think that's it for me.
Okay, so yeah, moving on. Southampton host Everton. Can the Saints break records again at home this time around after Leicester's all-action visit and Southampton's lack of action hosting? What's Hassan Hutel been saying? Some players back, possibly differentials back.
Yeah, this is a guy I sort of had an eye on in pre-season, and then when the season did start, it's just his fitness is the issue. There's Moussa Djenepo, who is, I don't know what he's down to now, but just over 5 million, I think, 5.2, 5.3. He's looked very good in what little time he's actually had on the pitch. It's just, he seems to pick up muscle injuries fairly regularly. But he's back. He actually came on last weekend at the Etihad. Looked quite good, looked quite eye-catching. Cedric is also back, and they've really needed fullbacks because Bertrand's still suspended. Valerie hasn't really quite convinced. I suspect there might be Cedric on the left with Bertrand being out. But yeah, those two are back. And Hassan Hutel said no more injuries. So other than Bertrand, who's, I think, in the second game of a 3-match ban, in fact, this is his last one because it was a League Cup game as well, they are all available. So he can't use injuries or suspensions as an excuse too much, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, they can just use all-round rubbishness as an excuse. Yeah. But you never know. Saints fans watch this, so, if you're watching this, I have every faith, and I'm sure they're going to do ever so well. I'm sure they're going to concede. Speaking of conceding, Norwich are full of injury news when I chat to you each week. Same again when they face Watford on Friday?
Getting better. It's getting better every week, really. I mean, apart from the results aren't, but the availability of many of the players are. So, Hanley and Zimmerman, as was reported last week, they are aiming for a return the other side of the international break. So that's defensive reinforcements that Norwich badly need. Mario Vrancic, who we haven't seen yet this season, it was, in my opinion, well overpriced. I think it's 6.5. But he's capable of racking up the goals, especially from set piece situations, assists too. He is now back. He's an option for the squad, according to Daniel Farke, not for 90 minutes, so might be a bench option.
Okay.
But he's one to watch going forward because he's got a reputation as being something of a set piece expert, I think, in the Championship. It's just this price, I suppose, that's a bit of a hindrance.
A differential for the future, perhaps.
It is Norwich. Yeah. That's the only other thing.
Meanwhile, on Twitter, I noticed that you not only put up press conference times, you put up your alternative press conference times with and what they sort of tend to say, the managers. Now, will also be unavailable is the usual quote from the Norwich camp, but now it looks like it's possibly will be available. I noticed there that you've got it just simply embargoed next to Watford. That is the theme for so many of their press conferences. Inexplicably stopped until 5 p.m. Is that the case this time? Any news from Watford ahead of 5 p.m?
Well, there shouldn't be, because as you say, it is under embargo. We do know that it's already happened because we've seen Watford post up a status themselves.
No leaks or anything?
And we've also, leaks. There's a guy who works at the BBC. Is it Will Perry? I think his name is. He put up a tweet. I don't know if he was meant to or not, saying that Deeney is back for the Norwich game on Friday night. So he was a favourite of Quique Sanchez-Flores in his last stint. I think that was Deeney's best ever season, actually, in terms of goals, which is when he was under Sanchez-Flores. So we could have a mid-price forward re-entering the radar. If only Watford could create chances. That was the only thing, of course.
Watch out later in the Watford Herald or the Hertfordshire Gazette, whichever it is that demands this embargo. And hopefully we'll get some more details. That would be big news for Troy Deeney being back, because he is traditionally a very nice, handy differential. Can we fit him in up top? There's so many good strikers to get at the moment. Just a couple of teams left. So Silva's been talking about Everton. Now, obviously, we saw that terrible injury to Gomez. How's their midfield shaping up in particular for Everton?
Not great, because obviously Gomez is one option in that, either in the double pivot or slightly further forward, as he was last weekend. He's going to be out obviously long term. Silva says he's hopeful of him having him back by the end of the season. Delph is another option there. He's a big doubt. Those are Silva's words. They're going to assess him over the coming 48 hours. He looked like he felt his hamstring towards the the back end of that Spurs game last weekend. And Silva says a big doubt. So it could be someone like Schneiderlin who comes in alongside Davies. In fact, he was mentioned by Silva as someone who's been fit and available.
Okay.
Sigurdsson's obviously hoping for a recall too. And they've still got Gabamin and Bernard out as well. So they are the longer term ones. Although I think Bernard is hopefully back after the international break.
And we've got Leicester at home against Arsenal. Obviously, they should be, topping the bill for us. But I understand there's not a tremendous amount of news from the Leicester camp from Brendan Rodgers' press conference. What's he been saying?
That's good if you've gone early on the likes of Vardy and Maddison and Chilwell and people like that. If you've made transfers early in the week, because there is no news really. Rodgers says that he's got a fully fit squad. Even Matty James, who's the long-term absentee, he's back in training. So
wow,
a veritable clean bill of health. Yeah, so that sounds very positive. If you're waiting for news, if you're poised and hovering over the transfer click button for Vardy, just on the off chance that he might have picked up an injury, well, Rodgers says they haven't got me. So sounds very good.
Okay, well that's annoying for me. I haven't got Vardy. Do I get him in? Do I take hits? I don't know. These are the thoughts that go through FPL managers' minds. We have part 2 tomorrow, 2:30 YouTube. Do join us then. We'll have the video version shortly after that, and podcast version as well. Stay tuned for that. Neil, in the meantime, I just always sign off with a little plug for the members area. It's really, this week I've been looking at the season ticker. So I've been looking at the fixture ticker there. I want to know who have got good games coming up. Obviously, that's Liverpool. Just still weighing up that, big decisions to be made. The members area is helping there as best as it can. But some decisions are so big in FPL. Not even top-notch stats analysis can help me. But in the meantime, Neil, until tomorrow, good luck with your game week, and good luck with any decisions you do overnight. We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, see you then. Bye-bye, Joe.